So certainly you need to have an idea of what's happening around you. Let's take a look at the news now. President Akufo-Addo says he expects to announce a roadmap for easing COVID-19 restrictions this week after stakeholder consultations conclude. Now the country's borders, as you know, have been shut and the ban on social gatherings is in force close to 3 months since Ghana recorded its first case. That was in March. Addressing virtual Eid celebratory prayers on Sunday, the president said the country has to find a way back.
Stakeholder consultations are taking place on the way forward towards the easing of restrictions so that our social and economic lives can go back to normal. I expect these consultations to conclude this week so that I can announce to Ghanaians a clear roadmap for easing the restrictions. We have to find a way back, but in safety. We cannot be under these restrictions forever. I'm fortified in this view by 3 considerations. Firstly, sad though any premature death is, the hard fact is that the rate of deaths in Ghana amongst confirmed cases is very low, 1 per 1 million, i.e. 0.0001%, one of the lowest in Africa and indeed in the world. This, despite the very high number of cases tests we are carrying out. This has been so since the very beginning of the outbreak over 2 months ago. The number of positive cases stands at 6,683 out of 194,763 tests conducted, with 1,998 recoveries.
In another story, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, is demanding transparency in the disbursement of the coronavirus stimulus package as he raises concerns about alleged political abuse of the funds. The National Board for Small-Scale Industries is set to disperse a total of some 600 million Ghana cedis to businesses that would apply to the organization. Government is also facilitating a 3 billion Ghana cedi package from banks. Mr. Haruna Idrisu says the use of these funds must be audited.
Nana Addo Dankwa and his ministers should stop dissipating public resources as if they were private resources or resources of the New Patriotic Party. I mean, when you take this money, let us know who are the beneficiaries. It should go beyond MPP businesses and MPP businessmen.
Are you alleging that
yes,
the funds are going to MPP businesses?
It should go to Ghanaian businesses. I will soon come out with an expose on Ghana Exim and how much they have spent their money over the period and who have benefited from it. It should be Ghanaian businesses, not MPP businesses. You see,
so this is in reference to Exim, not the COVID-19 funds.
COVID. We need to know how the money has been spent. They are not reporting. If you went to IMF to ask for 1 billion, you probably would have given them a paper that this is how I intend to spend the 1 billion. You come to the Parliament of Ghana without that breakdown. What do you take us for?
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu there speaking to my colleague Evans Mensah. Talk about education. It's been months since educational activities were halted in the country as part of measures to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. E-learning has been the order of the day. But for the rural folks without the smart devices nor internet connection, what is the fate of school-going population there? Join News' Kenneth Awachidako visited the community of Kambunyili in Elebele district of the Western region, where pupils congregate around battery-powered radio sets to listen in as teachers broadcast lessons on local radio stations.
It's nearly 10 a.m., usually representing the peak of the first break here at the Nima cluster of schools in Accra. But the closure of educational institutions over concerns of the novel coronavirus has left this dusty compound yearning for the return of playful action. The once vibrant pupils now channel their energies towards e-learning platforms to learn from home with the hope that it all blows over. Students in the urban areas may afford the alternative. For their counterparts in rural Ghana, meeting the teacher over the internet is not an option. Here's Deputy Education Minister Yao Osei Duchum some weeks ago on Beyond the Lockdown.
Within this short period of pandemic, the solution that has been provided, the intervention that has been provided, all of a sudden is not available to be used because they are locked up in the classrooms, they are locked up in the community IT centers, and students cannot congregate there and use them. So yes, it's a real problem, and I can understand why anybody will get frustrated.
Is there a way out for the have-nots? Far off in the western region is Kanbunli, located in the heart of the Nlembele district, which has a population of 87,501 according to the 2010 population housing census. The community has just about 57.7% of its population engaged in skilled agriculture, forestry and fishery work. Only 31% of the population above 12 years use internet facilities, with just about 581 households having computers.
You apply force. Are you here? Good. So the force you apply to overcome a load is called effort.
10-year-old Lina Isa has some 30 minutes to midday prayers in the predominantly Muslim community amid the Ramadan fast. The primary 5 pupil with her pen and books tunes into the community radio where teachers broadcast lessons to students in the area. These lessons are tailored for junior high school students, but Lina is brilliant enough to comprehend the lessons.
A machine is any device that makes work more easy and faster. Types of machines are simple machine and complex machine.
She's brimming of ambitions and will not let a ban on opening of schools get in her way.
I want to be a doctor in future.
A machine is a device by which a small...
Back in the studio, lessons continue unabated, but Lina is not the only child in the locality taking advantage of the lessons. Her colleagues clutch and sit close to battery-powered radio sets to make up for the lost contact hours their urban compatriots are getting online. Martin De Porres, who was pushed into the program by his grandmother, recounts his initial reaction to the shutdown of schools.
It was like the world has come to an end, because when you go home and you don't do anything, then you're not going to study. You're not going to study at all. You're going to roam about, work with friends and other things. It's a sort of revision for me because I'm in Form 3 and what they are teaching starts from Form 1. So I'm recapping whatever is going on.
It has been actually entertaining and very educative too. It has helped me very much. It has educated me on my do's and don'ts at the BEC hall, and also some topics we have not treated in class, and others that we've treated in class, I've polished it and I have had a better understanding. And I'm able to ask questions. Even when I'm not here in the house and I'm listening, I can still ask questions, call and ask questions. So it has helped me a lot.
The STEM Radio School is a corporate social responsibility by Talo Ghana Limited, geared towards mitigating the plight of students in their catchment areas. Fifi Angel is the social performance manager of Talo Ghana Limited.
This is not a new initiative. It is an ongoing initiative. And because of the situation, we decided to alter the way we deliver the initiative to support. We never anticipated that this would reach such an extent. We've had massive support from the education sector, from the various education directors, from the teachers, from parents, even from opinion leaders. We've had calls even to extend it across the whole of the country.
Director of Education in Nlembele District, Peter Ejable Akakweisen, believes the initiative couldn't have come at a better time, especially for final year junior high school students, and calls for support to extend it beyond the current scope.
The subjects are limited to only 3 out of the 4 core subjects. It's English, mathematics, science. But we still have social studies that is not covered. And we still have other subject areas that are not covered. So that is for BC. So if we could even extend it to cover all the core subjects, we would be grateful.
The implementing agency, Youth Bridge Foundation, have been explaining the modality of the initiative. Dorothy Abokuma-Mensah is the Talos STEM Radio School coordinator with the foundation.
Then it is really amazing how you will see that students are able to understand the topics that are treated on the radio. We get some feedback from teachers who are also monitoring. Teachers in communities such as IRAS, etc. They are really monitoring and encouraging their students to continue sitting by the radio and learn.
As the country grapples with the aftermath of the virus, key actors in the space continue to remain optimistic of what the future holds for the rural Ghanaian child, as concerns about inequality gaps in the sector are exposed and enlarged by COVID-19. Reporting for Joy News, Kenneth Awotredako.
Now the machine you see there is called what?
Well, very interesting, isn't it? Now let's take you to another story, which is a bit bizarre, because for a man whose wife allegedly conspired with a lover to kill him, it takes true love to still show affection for her. Now, that is the posture of 54-year-old farmer David Gato, said to be the target of a murder plot as he pleads for leniency for the woman. Now, even in court, he followed his wife in solidarity and gave her money in the full glare of the public, insisting the woman had acted under a spiritual spell. Nana Sensu Mensah has more in this interesting report.
Mavis Brepo is standing trial with an accomplice, Patrick Asare, after they were arrested when a supposed assassin they had sought to engage turned out to be a police officer.
Oh, man, bro, so I don't know. But also, you're not being say, as I didn't want to me, say, me, did. And then say, now didn't in first pan, will be seen a to me more money. Was send it as a nano ati. I was asking by when I buy it. Now, no more do action. I'm said, yes, and to me who say, I could have to me, no, yes, I don't know, but soon be any working.
Gato and the mother of 4 have lived for 14 years as husband and wife. Fast forward, the woman and a secret lover, Patrick, who used to lodge in the couple's home, have been in police custody for almost 3 weeks with 2 court appearances. Why won't you call this love? Mr. Gato says he has forgiven his wife and wants her back home as soon as possible.
Sanka wanye sa mere sa adruno an kamere de assembly no ko won tumi so enye sa de no entimi de obema ne de on de won ko ji ba mere de boni bia wayem bia me de menene eni feka bia me de man ne bona che no.
After the second hearing of the case, a touching spectacle unfolded on the court premises as Mr. Gato dished out undisclosed amount of money to his wife. The woman and her accomplice were on their way back to cells on second 2-week remand. Mr. Gato tells Love News he is disappointed the court didn't grant her wife bail.
Second one, and I'm going to say, oh, dream over there. I think we're coming to more and then to what now. And then now, but Umia Bema, you know, I didn't have a one now, Yabi Mano. What's that? One another so Yabi Mano. I said, I didn't know and where is the point is when Yabiama? Where is the point is when Yabiama?
Meanwhile, counsel for Mavis Brepo Muhaideen says he is considering taking up the case in a higher court.
Every court and all courts has jurisdiction to Gambia. Every court.
So why do you think the court couldn't listen to your plea?
It's the same question I keep asking myself. Why? Which is the reason why I would hopefully repeat my application before the higher court.
Before the higher court?
Yeah, before the higher court, the appellate court.
The 2 lovers will return to court on the 3rd of next month. Nana Sensu Mensah reporting.
A Romeo and Juliet sort of story. Well, Final story for the news segment. A female auto body repair and spraying technician at Swami Magazine in Kumasi is encouraging her colleagues to focus on their dreams for success. 35-year-old Esther Ishen recounts how she had to shrug off many distractions to build a vibrant business in a male-dominated field and has since resolved to achieve all her objectives. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin visited her and has filed this report.
My name is Esther Eshon. I completed KTI. I studied auto-body, and after my education, I came to Kumasi Magazine for my internship. As a woman, you need to have handiwork. If a man comes into your life to marry you, the first thing he would ask is, what do you do for a living? So you need to learn something that will help you in future. I really love this work. That's why I went in for.
Esther earns on average 300 Ghana cedis a day.
With the job, it depends. Sometimes there will be good days. Other times too, the story is different. I earn up to 300 or 400 cedis a day, but an office worker can't make up to 300 cedis a day.
She required no miracle to realize not everyone can work in an office. Some must discover their way in life.
All of us can't go and work in the office, so that's why I have my professional handiwork, so that in future when my husband could not provide, I will also be able to take care of my kids. It's better to learn something for yourself than to go and wander about anyhow as a woman. That's why I learned this job.
A graduate of the Kumasi Technical Institute, Esther has no regrets working in the midst of men here, though she faces what she finds disgusting moments of indecent assault. She remains resolute and determined to go the extra mile. Sometimes she has to turn to the Bible to preach to the men to hold on with their relationship adventure.
When you first go out to learn a profession, some guys will be touching your vital parts. When you start as a lady, men will propose love to you, but if you turn down their love proposal, they will stay away. If you don't avoid them, they will distress you, and if you don't take care, you might end up being pregnant. I am not married and I don't have a child either, but when I tell them, they don't believe. You just have to concentrate and they will treat you as sister. Now, they call me Osofumame, meaning pastor's wife.
Esther says women of her age should have some meaningful work to do for sustainable income before marriage. Many determined and focused ladies like Esther believe an economically empowered woman is a protection for future generations. A report by Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin.
What a man can do, a woman can do better.
With exceptional results.
And so different.
It's actually Ajay Ali Mahama who said it way back in Kufuor's days, and it's something that stuck with me for a very long time.
Charlie, what an inspiration. What
a man can do, a woman would do with exceptional results.
Well, we'll give you exceptional outturns and results right here on the show. Please make sure you get interactive. We have Facebook Joy News on TV. We also do have our Twitter handle at Joy News on TV. And then you can follow us what we're doing, just in case you're not at home or beside your television set. And our YouTube channel official is the Joy News TV. But in the meantime, we have to do the newspapers, Gifty.
And Araba Kumsin will be joining us when we return to do, oh, there she is, all set for us.
Yeah.
She'll be joining us with the newspaper review this morning.
Well, it's not time for us to do the newspapers. We have to say Barakat Salah to our Muslim brothers and sisters. and particularly to a number of them that we've always had as regulars on the show. The Member of Parliament for Myong, Mohammed Abdulaziz, good morning to you as well. And then also Adam Mutawakilu, your Member of Parliament for Damango. All of you have some great time while at home. Salifu Combat, of course. You're the boss for primary healthcare pharmacy at the Boku Presbyterian Hospital. Have a great time. Have a good morning. And I have one more, but I'll shelve that. Gifty, we have Araba joining us.
Yes, Araba, how are you doing? Are you there?
Fantastic.
Okay, I see you giggling, but I can't hear you. But I'll take the giggling whilst we try to hear you. Okay, she says, Barka de Sala. We'll work on the rest. We'll work on the rest and get it to you.
So while we wait for Araba to have the sound unmuted or the sound also restored, good morning to you, Karim Bukhari. You work with the Forestry Commission. You're based in Jasikan. You're an acting district manager currently in Sunyani with the family, and you celebrated the Salah or the Ramadan yesterday. You have some Muslim friends, Gifty. You seem to be Christian. Charlie, you have to mingle.
No, well, you talk about Shaiman, right? I went to a Shaiman secondary school as well, so I do have some friends there. But
you do?
I'm trying to remember my Muslim friends, like my typical Muslim friends. I'm just trying to remember all of them. But if you're one of them,
we'll forgive you.
No, if you're one of them, just send me a WhatsApp, okay? And I'll give you a Barka de Salah special shout out whilst we wait for it. I'm still trying to remember. It will come. It will just take me a couple of minutes. So we're waiting for Araba Kumsin to join us to do the newspaper review. I have the Daily Graphic at the moment, and the big story on the Daily Graphic is Give Us Violence-Free Elections, and it comes with a picture of Sheikh Nur Sharbutu, the National Chief Imam. That ceremony that went on yesterday on national television, and also he's urging the Electoral Commission to give the country a violence-free election. Very, very important. We have just a couple of months to the election. And then discussions to ease restrictions end this week. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. We brought you that story earlier. And right beneath that is Industrial and Commercial Workers Union is 60 today. Hooray! All right, let me go to the... Really, but what have we achieved? That's a big question. Always it is. The back page of that newspaper, Daily Graphic, says, and I must say it's pretty light today, perhaps the holiday version of Daily Graphic. The back page says Works Ministry, KMA clear drains in Kumasi. And that story is by Kwejo Bafodonko in Kumasi. And then charred bodies of Kintampo Dawadawa Road accident victims buried. A very difficult story, I must say, to tell. And if you look at the picture there, it comes with a picture of the mass burial ongoing whilst people are social distancing, with their masks on. The new reality, apparently, that's also there. And then you see people draining clearing the drains in Kumasi. The big story on the front page happens to be in the middle. And Roland, what do we have in the Daily Guide?
Yeah, so I'll do the Daily Guide. We have a couple of interesting stories, and I know that you watch his sermons, don't you? Obinim. And he's been captured on the front page of the Daily Guide. Gift his favorite pastor. Obinim Paris post-bail party claims, and apparently has a picture. I don't know whether this is latest, I'm not too sure, but he has in his hands wands of dollars, greenbacks as they call it, flashback. It says Daniel Obinim. As a attached picture in the caption subsequently. Down there we do have Nana to remove restrictions. That's on page 3 of the Daily Guide. And then we also do have Minister Ok's Kumasi Mayor's sanitation strategy. And COVID-19 has called for a relook at the way we have treated the environment and its implication on our health. Savannah records first COVID-19 case. Tally is now 6,683. On the back page is all full of sport. We have the Ghana Football Association meeting government COVID-19 team. And we also do know that, we had a great conversation on Beyond the Lockdown on Sunday evening with MFAPO, and there were a number of revelations on the show as well, and there's some commitments made by the government team that was being represented by the Deputy Minister of Sports, Perry Okudzeto, and then we also had the GFA president also enumerating a number of steps being taken by the football administration to be able to get football back on track. We are really too stupid. Lyon president Jean-Michel Aulas again lashed out at the French league for ending the Ligue 1 season early amid the COVID-19 pandemic, calling the decision stupid. Continues there. Meanwhile, we're hoping that La Liga will bounce back after the German Bundesliga, and subsequently there was a report on the BBC this morning that the president of La Liga would want a derby by the June 11 date, but we're being told on the back page story La Liga bounces back June 8. It has an attached picture of one of the favorites, even though the favorite star of La Liga currently, Lionel Messi. Lagos Cities, though, they're engaging fans on Zoom. It has Terry Maxwell Idam interacting with fans on Zoom. It's one of the lead managers there. Let's go to the center spread. The center spread of the Daily Guide has a number of stories. It says, I don't fear anybody. Obofo fires. A leader and founder of Anointed Palace Chapel, Reverend Obofo, has thrown caution to the wind, warning he will physically and spiritually deal with a certain rich man in Ghana in his TV station. And he has an attached picture, apart from Obofo, of Kennedy Japan. Talking about Kennedy Japan, Mama, we had an interaction. It's going to premiere on Joy News TV this evening. Yeah. The people
I'm looking forward to that particular interview. Yeah. But it's interesting that Reverend Obofo, I mean, who has been on social media a lot of the times in a brawl with Obinim, is also coming up, and it looks like, you know, they're together to fight a common enemy. Well, we'll see how that story goes.
And in that interaction also, you get to hear Kennedy Japan, the Member of Parliament, saying that, look, he's now waging a war on all those miscreant pastors or men of God, parading.
What he calls them fake pastors.
Fake pastors.
Yeah.
He has dossier, if not great evidence against them. Okay. So we have a number of stories also dominating center spread.
Can I go in? All right, okay.
Araba.
All right, so let me just give you a bit of details on the story the stories that I have here on the Daily Graphic. Right, looks like we can link up with Araba.
Yeah, so Araba will do the Ghanaian Times for us. Araba.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
And
Charlie.
Baraka de Sala once
Baraka Kade. Can I Hausa?
Please don't do this to Araba.
The only Hausa my great-grandmother taught me, or I learned, was Ido Kamanchanwa. And
what does that mean?
Your face like a cat.
Your face like cat.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Please go ahead. How was your weekend, though? I'm told that you were not working. You were enjoying the holidays from Friday.
I wish I could say I was enjoying the holiday, but no, it's all been work. As you know, I've been working on a documentary on the impact of the COVID on the business of news. So wow. We're wrapping that up, and hopefully by next week we should be, airing that document.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Please go ahead. Let's see what we have in the Ghanaian Times.
The Ghanaian Times. Okay, just a minute, because I'm still trying to.
Okay. Well, while you do that, good morning to you. Okay, so we have it. But while we do that, I have to say, Chief Yaro of Saki Zongo, Ashaiman, good morning to you. We love you. Barakadi Salah. And I know that you're going to enjoy the time. Great holiday.
Okay, so the Ghanaian Times, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are.
Middle page. Well, it has these two stories. Temalube Oil donates ambulance to Ashaman Polyclinic. And the details are as follows: that the Temalube Oil Company has donated an ambulance to the Ashaman Polyclinic to, I beg your pardon, it's quite
It's okay. We could basically go through the headlines and the front page and the back page, and then we can look at what's in the stories later.
Okay, so it also has the story of the Royal Phone Company. You remember last week, it went up in flames, but the story is that it has now resumed operations after last week's fire incident. Also, ICU at 60, hooray, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union is 60 years old today as of 25th May 2020. That's another headline in the Ghanaian Times. And of course, we have that story about the president on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. And it says, roadmap to ease restrictions in the offing. That was President Akufo-Addo speaking yesterday when they celebrated the Eid Mubarak. And it also says, Savannah records first coronavirus case as the national count rises to 6,683. Also, President praises Muslims for adhering to COVID-19 restrictions during Ramadan. And the health minister has been elected to serve on the WHO executive board. So those are the headlines on the Ghanaian Times.
That was a good one.
Shall we go into the details at this point? So, okay. I find this story very interesting. I think it's a very important story to hear the Sheikh, the National Chief Imam Sheikh Nuhu Shaributu talk about the elections. It's one of the things that COVID-19 has managed to overshadow, but it continues to be a priority on our list as Ghanaians. He says, it comes with a picture of him leading the Muslims in a prayer yesterday. And it says the National Chief Imam Sheikh Usman Nuhu Shaributu has called on the Electoral Commission and other stakeholders involved in this year's general election to work towards violent, free and transparent elections. Moreover, he said political stakeholders should avoid tendencies that could jeopardize the political peace, harmony and stability that the country has enjoyed over the years and continues to enjoy. So he talked about that, and it's I think for me it's a very important point that he makes. On the center spread, the story that I did not talk about is the Kuwait deportees and the fact that they've been quarantined. Latif Idrisi followed that story for us yesterday. It says all the 241 Ghanaians deported from Kuwait last Saturday by the Kuwaiti government for residing in the country illegally have been placed under a mandatory 14-day quarantine. Reports are that before the repatriated persons left Kuwait, they were taken through a COVID-19 infection test, the results of which were negative. But it's part of our protocols to keep them for 14 days, monitor them ourselves, and make sure that they're okay. And these girls, I mean, these people were saying, I asked for the clarification of who they are and why they're being deported. We're told that some of them, you know, they went to work as domestic workers, and then they have to, you know, sometimes they get maltreated and they decide to leave. But once you decide to leave the care of the one who brings you in the country, then you become an illegal person. You have to go, and the country is giving amnesty. If you're living illegally, they're just allowing you to go to your country. So we're glad to have them back. I hope that they get what the sort of attention that they require as they're in the country. And then the Kintampo Dawadawa Road accident victims buried is the last story I'll look at here in Daily Graphic. It says a mass burial has been organized for the charred bodies of 25 victims of an accident that occurred on the Kintampo Dawadawa Road last March. The exercise was carried out by the Kintampo Municipal Assembly in collaboration with the security agencies last Saturday.
Well, so we'll talk about the first story, and I believe that all of us will have a lot to say about it, and particularly, Araba, if we know that the president is already giving us the indication that we're likely to have a removal of these restrictions. It will ultimately mean that, well, everything would have been in place, knowing that we will still have effects of coronavirus and the way we live our lives. What would you have to say about it, Araba?
Well, I was comforted by the fact that he said that we have a more robust mechanism for defeating the virus. As you know, the government strategy has been testing, tracing, testing, and treating. And so if the president is assuring us that they have made some gains and that, you know, they now have a more robust mechanism for defeating the virus, then I guess we'll have to leave what he says. Already there's a lot of pressure on him by the Christian community and the Muslim community as well to ease the restrictions and open up churches and mosques. But of course, we are not out of the woods yet, so we can't be rushing to that point. So if he says that we have a more robust mechanism for defeating the virus, I'd like to believe that that is true, but we have to proceed with caution.
And it's a very important point that Araba makes, and we can learn from the countries that have done so. We've seen what's happening in the United States of America, where, you know, it's been a political football they're playing at the moment. The Democrats and the Republicans are going about it. In Brazil, they have the president has this position that, you know, the economy ought to thrive, etc. In Germany, and we've been talking to them quite frequently here on Joy News. In Germany, they eased restrictions, but unfortunately, the rates at which infections were being transmitted went up a notch higher. And so we can learn from countries that have learned their lessons, you know, with the easing of restrictions. I must say, though, that in Germany, again, they're opening parts of Europe, they're opening up their borders. So we have a lot of examples to learn from, if indeed that's what we ought to do. But it looks like life must go on.
Yeah, definitely life must go on. And talking about the related issues about how sometimes the spread is not contained, you'll get to find that in the more developed countries, what they do is trying to be on the heels of whatever cases by way of the tracing and then the testing. Yeah. So the Telegraph just on Saturday was reporting there was a particular case in point in which about 40 people were infected in Germany when they went to church. Now, outrightly, it will mean that we will have to get our acts together. Already we're seeing people not wearing face masks, not going according to the protocols. And I believe that if we want to live with the disease, it would also mean that the caution will have to be on our side. The authorities will do their best, but ultimately it's what we have to do that will get us out of the woods. So we're hoping that something good will come out of this. Well, I don't know, but I leave the rest of the discussion. I'll let you start the rest of the discussion. But I must say, though, that I see when the demolition was ongoing last week at Jamestown, I saw how close people were to one another, and not all of them were wearing masks. I shudder, you know, at the idea that we'll be easing restrictions in these times, because people don't seem to get it. I mean, I don't know. Oh, definitely.
But Gifty, if I could just interject here. Yeah. Gifty.
Yes, go on,
Araba.
Right. So I think that we've been told that we have to live with the disease. So we have to conscientize ourselves that this is something that is not going to go away anytime soon. So we need to make sure that we adhere to the necessary protocols to keep ourselves safe. It's likely that when we ease the restrictions totally, we'll see a spike in the numbers. That is to be expected. The most important thing is to ensure that people get the treatment that they need so that they don't keep spreading it. But as for the spike in the numbers, it is to be expected. So we cannot keep delaying easing the restrictions. It's bound to happen. And when it happens, we can then deal with it.
Okay. There's a story, though, that that took my attention, and it's related to the assurances that the president had been given. And Gifty and yourself, you enumerated that in the headlines that you read. The president says that peaceful elections is a must, is something that he's promising. And it looks like within the period of the COVID, it's also important that when there's the resumption of normalcy or normal life, the political and state actors would do us a lot of good to make sure that they play within the rules, because now they've been restricted, and ultimately it means that they're going to have a full go at it. And Araba, I don't know what you think about it.
Well, I mean, we are how many months away from the elections? We're in a little over 6 months to the elections. I mean, government has indicated that it will definitely come on, because if Korea can, conduct elections in this pandemic, it's possible to do so. So I'm confident that we'll find a way of going about it, even in the midst of this pandemic. But what is important is that it ought to be done in a free and fair manner. We can't have, the agitations and antagonisms that have characterized, the the recent decision by the EC to
compile a new register.
Compile a new register, yes. And so that ought to be addressed moving forward so that there's no antagonism around
right.
the polls.
Right. Just the whole of the last week, I believe, and up till now, there had been a number of comments on social media, particularly when we tend to have these virtual conversations, and many of them have involved men. And if you do a cursory observation of what they post out on social media, you get to find that a lot of feminists and then also pro-female activists or gender activists have always thought that there seemed to be some level of discrimination by way of, if it's a leadership conversation, a conversation on national issues, women seem to be put to the back burner. And I know Gifty and Araba good gender activists, but I don't know what you think about it. Let me start with Gifty.
Well, I would have loved to hear what Araba has to say about it. But I think, okay. Yeah, Araba, go for it.
Right. So I think that our commitment to gender equality has never been in question. Never been in question. Obviously, there might be some actions we might take that might be a bit distasteful to the gender advocacy community. But that is to be expected, and it's not done to antagonize anybody.
Okay. Well, we just went into the deep freezer. Okay, we just put Araba in the deep freezer. We'll open up the
Gifty, your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts is it's interesting. It's very interesting that this comes up. I think that, like Araba is saying, our commitments to women empowerment. I mean, at a point, I thought that it was people were talking about it. I thought that it was overflowed. But I met a couple of young people, and I just realized just how much work there was to do. So by all means, empanel women when they're available and when we can find them. And we've been doing that. In fact, we've been working with the Media Foundation for West Africa to do this over the years. So for anybody to, even think it, I think it's, I think it's not fair. I think it's not fair, and that's why, I mean, I was particularly brokenhearted last week when the conversation went on. There are people who do this gender thing as it's a sort of fashion, There are people who do it because they have a certain agenda. They want to be seen to have done something. They want to be seen to put it on their CV, and we know people who do that. Put it on their CV, apply for some funds here and there. I think that we should be committed wholeheartedly, sincerely to women empowerment. That's what we should do. And so when you see a sister who is championing this agenda, you don't open them up for attack. I mean, that's my position. You open them for attack, you are defeating the entire argument. In fact, you are defeating the entire purpose of feminism or gender activism. When someone does something and you think the person didn't do it right, what do? We put it out on social media and have people insult them. I think that will hurt the movement. It will hurt gender activism. It will hurt feminism, and it's not the way to go. So for me, that's my position. But by all means, I mean, we should do it. If you do production, you know how difficult it is to empanel, to put a panel together.
Why is that?
So the thing is, sometimes the women themselves, I've had a lot of difficulty. I've had a lot of difficulty in trying to get women who are available at certain times. So we try to put and one of the things that came up in this discussion years back was that try and put women in place that's appropriate, because you cannot bring a woman and you call a woman and say come and be a part of a discussion at say 10 p.m. But thank God there is Zoom now. You don't even need to look far. All you have to do is get the woman to set up. When they are available, we would do it. There was a database by Media Foundation for West Africa that we explored, but I don't know whether that has gone down. But when they're available, we always explore it. But when they're not, and besides, we need to get the men to talk about women, because we live with them whether we like it or not.
You live with us.
Yes, we live with men. So we need to get the men to also be passionate about women. And I think we can have this discussion without necessarily insulting people or being disrespectful. It doesn't add anything to the argument.
Yeah, Araba wants to say something before we wrap up. Araba, on the same subject.
I I think an important point to address is that in order to change this whole narrative, we have to see the representation that we want to see. It's important that the appointing authorities appoint women into positions of power so that when you have to speak to a minister of state and it's a man, you cannot do anything about it because you want specific answers. You cannot go to his deputy or to his second in age. You need the minister who you can hold accountable. Like I earlier mentioned, we are so dedicated to gender equality. If you take a cursory look at the media industry, in most radio stations and TV stations, there are a lot of females, working in radio stations and TV stations. Take our place, for example. The women outnumber the men. So when you talk about representation, we more than understand that. So it's important for people to argue their case, not in a vacuum, but within a context. And that's all I'm going to say.
Well, Gift, you have to go for sports.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Have you been following your team? Which team do you support, by the way?
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I think we should have a larger, conversation about this. But
we'll pick that to our producer.
Team, you mean the local teams or the foreign team?
Foreign team.
I think so. So I saw Arsenal at some point, and I decided to go with Arsenal. But I hear they are heartbreakers. So I'm not sure. I'm still considering my options.
They're not heartbreakers. Rather, they keep you in check. Rather, they make sure that you have patience a lot.
Okay, maybe Manchester United will work for me. United. Yeah, I know a lot of guys.
All right. So that'll be. But Araba, you have to take us for a break. We have sports next. Take us for a break. Well, the Zoom doesn't seem to be working well, definitely. It's just internet connectivity. But we have a lot of conversation right here in the morning, and it's about how all of us could live the new normal. And we have some great scientists, virologists, and some immunologists with us. Okay, so we're having all these right up next after sports.
Former Black Stars captain Stephen Appiah has lauded the leadership qualities of current skipper Andre Ayew. Now, Andre has won the heart of Appiah, who led the Black Stars to a maiden FIFA World Cup in 2006.
Andre, when it comes to Andre, I think he's a leader. The way he talks, the way he acts. The way he do his things. Okay. You can see that a leader doesn't mean that you have to do magic on the pitch. Everybody has his own moments. Some people think that because Maradona is wearing the number 10, he is the best player, he should be the leader. You can give the band to Maradona, but maybe leadership skills it doesn't have. And we have some players like Andre. Asamoah did his best. Asamoah did so well. But we are talking about Dede. Like Andre, I think I see is somebody who always wanted to win. And I always refer to Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard was doing so well. You see the Liverpool players, they were running and doing everything. They want to die. They don't want to die for anybody. They see the captain giving everything on the pitch. So the players will be like, okay, our leader is doing this. We too, we have to try and support him. So when it comes to Andre, I think he has leadership skills. And till now, we went to Egypt. Things didn't go well as we wanted. But I see a good leader.
All right, just before I take leave of you, former Black Stars captain Appiah, you heard from him earlier, but he's highlighted the importance of AstroTurfs in the development of sporting talent in the country, despite concerns over their usage. Asari Akon has more in the following report.
Artificial turf is a surface of synthetic fibers made to look like natural grass. It is most often used in arenas for sports that were originally or are normally played on grass. Artificial turf stands up to heavy use such as in sports and requires no irrigation or trimming. Domed, covered and partially covered stadiums may require artificial turf because of the difficulty of getting grass enough sunlight to stay healthy. Artificial turfs play a significant role in the development of sport in several African countries, including Ghana. Ultra-modern artificial turfs are dotted around the country thanks to Wembley Sports Construction Company Limited. Many football experts are opposed to the idea of developing talent on AstroTurf. A former captain of the Black Stars, Stephen Appiah, has underlined the benefits of artificial pitches.
Since 2012, that I decided not to play football anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, in Europe, we played in Astros. I mean, artificial turfs.
Sure.
The first time we went to Wembley at Kotobabi to play, after the game, I felt okay. Okay, you know that we have the perception about AstroTurfs when you finish your joints, you feel pains, and but it all depends on the quality of the pitch. The pitch. And I think that Wembley is doing so well. Today, football in Europe, every team they have like 2 or 3 AstroTurfs. 2008 when Manchester played against Chelsea in Russia, it was on AstroTurf. I mean, I've been hearing people were like, "Oh, AstroTurf is not good for the kids," but it's the same AstroTurf that the clubs in Europe are using. So I always say that if we had the AstroTurf like today, the new generation are training on, by now I think we will be still playing.
The former Juventus midfielder commended Wembley Sports Construction Company Limited for ensuring every constituency in the country gets an AstroTurf.
In that Wembley is doing so well. The CEO, Mr.
Robert
Coleman, is doing so well. I'm saying that because of the quality of the turf that he uses, and I think if we will have every community will have an Astro, I think it's going to help, because we all know when it comes to football, football gives a lot to Ghana. So, we hope that we'll see more AstroTurfs.
Wembley Sports Construction Company Limited has so far changed the way athletes see artificial turfs in Ghana and has never compromised on international standards.
Well, that was Asari Bediako's report. And on that note, we end sports here on the AM show this morning. Enjoy your holiday, take care of yourself, and stay safe. My name is Benedict Hosi. Thanks so much for your company.
Fellow Ghanaians, now everybody know that we are in a pandemic year or a month. And the measurements are come, as the president said, that everybody supposed to make sure to social distance to work. Me and my listeners, I want my people to know that this disease is a terrible disease. It's it's active. It's a disease which will catch you, my man. If your immune system is not stronger, there's no way your family will get you. So I want to tell my people that wash your hand with the running water, with a good sanitizer. That principle, my man, every home have to obey that instruction. Don't make yourself loose, especially our children. Don't let your children to go out anywhere. Don't let your family to go out anywhere. So as I'm talking to you, that this pandemic we are in is so terrible. So fellow Ghanaians, you are watching my mouth right now. Make sure is that the social distance is more important to cover your nose. My life to me is that to cover your nose is a more important thing. To wash your hands is a more important thing. to social distance. I think say that social distance is the main important thing. So as I'm talking to me and you have a social distance here. So anything you are talking, there's no way something from you to me from you can get it. So I'm let them my people to know, especially my fellow Ghanaians who follow me everywhere. My brother, the social distance is very important. If I'm talking everything, I'm mentioning a social distance. Say the social distance is more keen. And make sure you're washing your hands. Some people will say washing your hand, didn't wash your hand well. Make sure the running water. That one, the running water is supposed to be every sector to your home. Are you getting me? So if your home is you having water with your home, anytime I'm coming home, I have to wash my hand before I enter.
Well, very funny as it is, but it's also a message that we all need to adhere to. And Gifty, it's more appropriate for the period, knowing that we have to live the new normal.
Yeah. So whether we like it or not, it's here, and we have to do something about it. And that's a conversation that we'll be having. How do we live with a disease, essentially, that spreads as fast as wildfire? That's what we're, bushfire, I should say. That's what we're going to have. That's the conversation we're going to have. We're joined by Dr. Samuel Essien Baidu. He's a microbiologist and immunologist at the University of Cape Coast. We also have Dr. Ruth Entry, who is head of psychiatry at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, also joining us for that particular conversation. Looks like we have three of them. We also have Dr. Christian O. He's a consultant anesthesiologist. That's a very big and a mouthful. And also head of ICU at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, also now at the UGMC, National COVID-19 Case Management Coordinator for severe and critical cases. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to all of you.
And good morning to your audience.
Great.
I mean, I like to have this conversation by asking you, getting a bit personal with people like you, people who work in the front lines, and to find out how it's going for you. I mean, certainly it's not the same. Any of you can go for it. How about we start with a woman?
Definitely not.
Gender activism. So we start with...
Yeah, Ruth, you want to go?
Okay, we can't hear her at the moment. So, Doc, please go ahead. We can't hear her.
It's not been easy. It's been a bit stressful, but the joy is that you are able to offer some help and support to somebody, and at the end of the day, their results come negative and they are going home. It's been great. It starts with you breaking the news of you have tested positive, and then most of the time, almost all the time, it ends with you breaking the news of, okay, you are well, you have gotten negative test, you have recovered, either you are going home or now you are free from your self-quarantine. So it's mixed feelings of stress and happiness all mixed together. At the end of the day, the joy is that we are joining in the workforce to see that we are able to tackle COVID-19 head on.
Right. I was hoping for a rather personal story, but that's okay. Dr. Wu, let me come to you for your own personal experience so far.
Yeah, Gifty, thank you. I agree with Ruth, it's not been easy. It's changed basically how we do everything, not only with medical practice, but with family life and then finance, economy and all that. Every facet of our life has been touched. I've had to basically even change how we operate as family, and even I need to say that family has been extremely very supportive. My wife, the little boy, and going out with uncertainty, you could know what you're doing, you could be sure of what you're doing, but your family are not sure what you're doing. I must say, other aspects of family lives and social life have been touched significantly. I've spoken to my mom almost every day, but I haven't seen her in 8 weeks, which is very unusual, even for me. I've spoken to my siblings quite regularly, almost every day. But again, we haven't seen each other in trying to protect each other and then be role model for what we are trying to get others to do. So yes, I intentionally have focused more on what it does to our personal life, what it does to our relationships, what it does to our finance. We're spending a lot more now, even though children may not be in school, but we're spending a lot more on internet, on e-learning, and I'm sure everybody who has a child could attest to that. And we're spending a lot more on cleaning agents that we had taken for granted before. Now there has to be a tissue, there has to be running water, there has to be Veronica bucket, there has to be soap regularly, and you can't take those things for granted anymore. So yes, the new normal is quite different from what the old normal used to be. But there are good things to learn from it. There are limitations that we will be faced with. But that's been personal life in this last 8 to 9 weeks here.
Okay. I mean, it's good for us to have that perspective of how your life personally has changed. So we set the tone for our conversation of how we can now begin to live or even fantasize with the idea of living with this virus. So I'm coming to you, Dr. Asian, as well, for your own personal story. Then we can start our conversation.
So thank you. Personally, for me, I think the challenge has been how to adjust to the new normal and particularly adapt to regular family life, nuclear family, extended family, friends, and other relations. That has been the biggest challenge for me personally. You can't go back home hugging your kids like you used to do. You can't give that handshake when you meet friends and all of that again. And so it's been a bit of a challenge, but as Dr. Wu rightly said, we need to also be reminded of the fact that these things have become part of our lives now, and we must do them and be able to help limit the spread of the infection so we can get it done with in no time.
Well, I'm also around, so but let's kickstart this whole discussion on the subject of how we live the new normal by asking you, Ruth, Dr. Ruth Owusu, that, you know, we're coming from a situation where we have intense number of cases being announced. The media is always creating the buzz around the human interest stories, and there's always the psychological aspect of the fear, etc. If we want to follow through what other countries have done, making sure that we adapt our lives with the disease, then it also means that we need to do some level of psyching up people. Where do we start from?
Yes, thank you, Roland. I think it's now very obvious that this virus is going to live with us for a very long time. We should give ourselves a period of 2 to 5 years. And so I started thinking about this quite early in the pandemic. How should our lives go on with this pandemic? Initially, it was how do we avoid the infection? How do you try and stay away from the infection? But my perspective has changed, and I think that is what we should be looking at now. And it should change to how do we live with this pandemic? How do we live with this virus? The conscientization should start right away. People should begin to fit it in their lifestyle. I was just speaking to one of my patients and I said, you are due for your review. Can you come over so and so date? And the person is, no, I would have to wait till the pandemic is down. I said, no, you would have to find a way to come and still feel safe. And so our education should now include not just the preventive protocols, but to emphasize the fact that we should try and let life go on, even in the midst of the pandemic. If you are following all the preventive measures put up, then virtually you would, as much as possible, stay out of getting infected. But people should understand that that should not stop anything. If you need to go out, take your mask and move. I saw a picture of a lady who had done a makeup and had painted on her mask, wanting to appear as if she wasn't wearing a mask. I mean, everything should move as if there is no pandemic, but as much as possible in the context of keeping all our preventive measures. And so, yes, pandemic is here. I'm not sure how soon schools will reopen, when churches will reopen, when gatherings would be allowed to go on. But when they happen, in the midst of all the preventive measures, we should still be able to function. And I think the conscientization should begin now.
So having the conscientization begin now, let me bring in the microbiologist, Dr. Samolesian. Doc, I would like to find out from you. Now, from the psyching up perspective, we're hearing that, look, whether we like it or not, it's here. And we should put that in our education plan. We don't know what the president is going to announce, but should he lift the restrictions on social gathering, etc., from what you see as the character of this virus, is wearing a mask and washing your hands just enough as yet if we have to incorporate this into our lifestyle?
Okay, so basically, if you look at what we are describing as our new normal, there are two major phases in our new normal, which are the adaptation phase and then the stabilization phase. Now, what we are doing currently is to adapt to what we are referring to as a new normal. Now, in the changing phases of the pandemic, right from the onset, where our numbers increased up to a point, people started dying and all of that, and the introduction of the measures, I think that what we need to do now is to encourage people and educate people a lot more to adapt to this new phase. Now, this adaptation phase would include, obviously, hand washing, physical distancing, wearing of masks, and all of that. And once you can get a lot more people to adapt to this phase, then gradually we can get all of us stabilized, and then we would be able to live with this virus for as long as we wait for vaccines to be developed. So it is important that we maintain these measures as we speak now. We make sure that people gradually understand that we need to adapt to this new way of life. We need to adapt to washing our hands regularly. We need to adapt to wearing face masks. We need to adapt to measures of keeping physical distance from one another and all of that. And once we adapt properly, then it becomes part of our lives, and then we'll be able to stabilize ourselves and live until vaccines have been developed. So
from your answer, I'm getting that we are fine as long as we can keep wearing the mask and keep washing our hands and keeping away from one another. I'm asking this because I heard that this virus has a character of its own as it transitions from one country to the other. I don't know how true that is. If you can help us with that. We're told that it mutates. And so when it gets to the kind that you have, for example, in the UK or in Italy, where a lot more people are dying, isn't the same as what we're experiencing in our parts of the world. Is there any truth to this?
I think the genome sequencing that was done at Legon has clearly shown us that what we have here is not too different from what has been reported in Wuhan and the other areas as well. And for us, that is a good news. We will continue to monitor how the virus behaves and then also inform accordingly if there is a need to change strategies and all of that. And so it is important to keep in line with what the researchers and the clinical scientists are observing in terms of the behavior of the virus and also advising accordingly. As we speak now, we haven't identified any new strains of the virus apart from what we saw earlier on. Okay. And so our strategies necessarily do not have to change as we speak.
Good to know.
Dr. Wu, and since you're now at the center where you tend to see the most critical of the cases as we have it, ultimately it will mean that when there's any resumption of normalcy of life, it would mean that, let's say, critical care for other cases of diseases that we have at OPDs, etc., will still have to go on. And then we have these that could also come in ultimately. Are we likely, based on what you have read, your experiences or interactions with other health professionals across the world, that once restrictions are lifted, we could see a surge? But then how do we then allay our fears when we see such a phenomenon?
Yeah, Roland. So again, just as Samuel said, there is an adaptation phase, there is a stabilization phase. We speak of the new normal, not purely as a situation where everything goes back to the old normal, and that's why we keep calling this new normal. As Ruth said, this virus may be with us for a bit of a time, but it is what impact it is having that is more important than it's been. There are viruses with us, living with us, causing no problem, or even when they're causing problems, the measure of their problem is significantly insignificant, in which case we tend to ignore them and live our old life. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it is important to not forget that the vulnerable, and I mean the medically vulnerable in our population, are still at risk as long as there's significant infection and spread. So one of the things we did at the beginning is started thinking about exit strategy. But you can't exit in the middle of people dying. You can't exit when the number of people who are critically ill is still very significant. You have to have a plan to exit. But that means that there needs to be a lot more aggression while you're trying to make sure that those vulnerable in the population, those with what we call chronic medical conditions, diabetes, hypertension, sickle cell asthma, cancer, kidney, liver diseases, that they can also live a life when we say that we have exited and moved on with our life. If not, we can't stabilize. That is important to bear in mind. It also means that we cannot pretend that because it is here with us, that we should allow it to infect anybody and everybody and then find a way of living. Because what that means is we will be chasing herd immunity, and people are going to significantly die. Will our health system be able to absorb that amount of critically ill patients? I am not too sure at the moment. We need to be careful about those. So we need to be aggressive in making sure that we keep talking about blunting the curve or flattening that curve, where, yes, the numbers who are infected are so little that eventually we may be having one or no infection. And China, in the last few days, have had situations like that, even with a population of 1 trillion people. So we need to work at that aggressively while we are at it, get to the point where whatever numbers that are infected are so insignificant that it doesn't cause much problem for our health system. If not, the health system is not going to recover from that. Then we have to plan, how do we manage people side by side, because we're not going to create new hospitals that are going to be taking care of COVID. No, it's going to still be basically patient an infectious disease, as we've already had in our previous hospitals, being taken care of side by side, and being taken care of by healthcare professionals who should be clear in their mind and confident that they can still work in that environment. We talk about new normal. Wearing masks, washing hands may not be too much of a restriction if you can have the amenities, but wearing a full coverall working is cumbersome. Our health system is not going to change to a system where doctors are going to wear full coverall to see patients. That is why those need to be dealt with so that we will be able to work. We won't be able to examine patients effectively if we think that that will be our new normal. So that's not what I mean by new normal. New normal is still with the social, with the infection prevention control, with the changes that will happen in our health education, in our medical education and education of health professionals, and the use of IT in what we do. And then the psyching up of people, because even when we say today that there is no infection in Ghana, even for 2 weeks, you may have a difficulty with people agreeing to go back to work, with people agreeing to shake hands, with people agreeing to hug. But eventually we're going to get back to hugging, we're going to get back to shaking hands, we're going to get back to reducing the distance between us. We're not going to, our transport system is not going to survive if in the next 2 years, the gap between people is huge. So all this we need to bear in mind, that when we are psyching people up, we need to create the atmosphere, the ambience for people to feel safe and to be confident to get back to work and to be productive. If not, we'll be running at crazy loss economically, trying to manage a synthetic new normal.
All right. Dr. Ruth, if the decision is being taken to remove the restrictions, we've seen that elsewhere, and I'll borrow the phrase of Gifty here, and she said that the decision and the argument that has dominated, let's say, the atmosphere in the US, etc., has been one of playing political football with that decision for the restrictions to be removed. Now, in our case, for you, the health professional, what goes in your mind when you know you're seeing the real cases, but also a decision politically has to be made by authorities of state that, look, life has to move on? How do you create the balance in there? I start with Ruth. I think it's a question all of you can take, though. But Ruth, you start with it.
Sometimes you feel very worried. You feel that this is a wrong move. But once the decision has been taken and it should govern all of us, what usually happens is that let us find how we can restructure to fit this new decision. I remember when the lockdown was initially lifted, the health professionals were not too happy. We thought that cases were increasing, but the government said it's time to lift it based on several things that were enumerated. At that point, we all have to now restructure, readjust to see, well, if cases are going up, lockdown lifted, what else can we do to curb the virus? And so we live not just in a health system, we live in an economic system, in a political world system, in a world where several other things matter. Somebody may say that, well, if you don't have life, what then is politics? If you don't have life, what then is business? But I've heard people who are saying that if I don't get my economic confidence, if I don't go out and do my business, I might as well die from poverty or from anxiety or from sleepless nights, I'm only worried about my business going down. So one way or the other, it is not just the health aspect that we should be concerned with, but we should look at the overall situation. And so, no matter the decisions that are taken by the powers that be, by our political leaders, the health system must find means and ways to adjust and to still continue to fight this pandemic. Initially, it is not easy, but we realize that we have to re-strategize, and probably that is the best means to move forward.
And re-strategizing, very soon we'll open the phone lines and allow you, those of you who are watching at home, to direct your questions to any of our resource persons. What questions you have on your mind, let's ask them and see how we can work this out. Talking about re-strategizing, I'd like to bring in, any of either Dr. Owu, well, let me get to Dr. Essien, about what we need to do. Facility, in terms of our facilities, in terms of our health personnel, if we are accepting that this is something we need to deal with. Dr. Owu indicated that we still have to take care of the other diseases. There is malaria, people have hypertension, people have diabetes, and those people are even high risk. In terms of our facilities and the human resource to fight this in the hospitals, what, from your perspective, do we need to do if we need to live with this virus for, as Dr. Ruth is saying, at least 5 years?
So basically, I think that we also need to relook at our policies in terms of how we work, how our transportation systems work, educational systems, health facilities, and all of that. This is not going to be like it used to be previously. Now, Dr. Wu rightly mentioned that it is not going to be easy for physicians, for instance, to wear full regalia, seeing patient after patient and all of that. We need to come up with innovative think we can go through this phase of stabilization, which is very, very important. A lot of the times you notice that a lot of attention has been given to the public health implications of this pandemic, and very little on the economic implications and the others, the political implications and the likes. We need policy changes in terms of how we work, in terms of how we educate people, right from the school system. Dr. Wu also did mention the use of technology, for instance. Is it possible to innovate?
Looks like we've lost Dr. Essien there, but it's a very important point he makes about policy changes, the necessary policy changes. If we have to live with this, now we need to work it out so that everybody is on the same page. So we are on the same page. We know that if I have to go to work, I have to go with a mask. It's a policy. Right now it's still some way, somehow a policy we're trying to implement. So, well, let's get on the phone lines. This is about you, most importantly. Isaac is calling from Ashie. Isaac, what's the question?
Good morning, Gifty. This is Isaac Batum, Major.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah. I want to ask our doctors, with the recently discovered medicine for Madagascar, what is their view on that new discovery? What are they putting in place? What is the research they are also doing to ensure that this thing Madagascar has discovered can also help Africa in general? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for that question. Do not call the WhatsApp line. We put the WhatsApp line there. It's for a message. So do text us. We'll ask the question for you. Don't call. You can call the phone lines, by the way. Roland, who do we give this question to?
We give the question to first Dr. Owu, and then we'll go to Dr. Essien Bedu for it. Dr. Owu, please start off with all this.
Yeah.
Madagascar.
Yeah, thank you, John. There are a lot of researches that are going on, and it's not, almost every country is trying to see what works and what doesn't work, just as well as vaccines are being created as we speak now. Yeah, we know vaccines take a little while before we get to the phase where we use it for human beings. And that, I mean, if we're able to get vaccines now, it reduces a lot of the cumbersomeness that is associated with this. The Madagascar medication, it's difficult for me to speak expertly on it because I think part of what is happening now is there are tests going on, including in our country, on it, and then by WHO to see both efficacy, its ability to do what it says it does, and then to find out what effect, i.e. side effects, it may have. And these are things that are done with every medication that are licensed to use in any country. So that is as much as I can say about that. We will be glad if this works and if it is safe for use, just like any other medication that comes from the West. If this is coming from Africa and it works and it does not cause adverse effects on our patient, it will be fantastic. We would be among those to go for it very aggressively to treat our patient. But we're not yet there at the moment. So that is as expertly as I think I can speak to the Madagascar drug at the moment.
Well, Doc, we'll come across to the rest of you, but I think that we have about 2 more callers on the line. Let's take their questions so that we have 3 to go, and then you answer, you speak to that. So I have Roberto from Enum. Roberto, please go ahead. Oh, we lost both of them. So sorry. You can call again.
Okay, so Dr. Sembedu, the point about having medicines from other sources beyond just the orthodox.
I think basically we need to be very cautious in that approach. We need to review critically what these medicines are, whether there are contraindications, whether they would have other effects on the people who would take these medications and all of that. So it is not just blanket. We need to be very cautious what we use in managing these patients. For instance, now there's a lot of upset of cancers in our system due to consumption of a number of things, which I'm sure probably we can discuss that later. We need to be very circumspect what we use in managing this pandemic. It needs to be proven. We can't just go wholesale and say that because it's worked for this person or that person, it should work generally for everybody. For instance, in some countries, they tried producing monoclonal antibodies as immunotherapeutic agents for managing COVID-19. But then they realized along the line that it didn't work wholesale for everybody. And this is where the research bit comes in. We need to be very careful and evaluate all these before we apply them.
Okay, but because of the dynamics, Roland, I think that we should, so in order not to make people stay on the line for too long and, you know, credit issues in this COVID-19, we take a number of calls and take a number of the questions and then we throw it to you. Benjamin is calling from Gas South. Benjamin, sorry for making you hold for that long. Please go ahead.
Please, my name is...
Your name again?
My name is Benjamin Amankwa. I'm calling from a community called within Gas South region.
No problem. If you have a question, please, you can pose them to our experts. On stream.
3 days ago, I've been feeling feverish. I don't know. And I've been coughing down, deep down to my heart too. And I'm afraid, and I don't know, maybe...
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Did you say you're coughing?
Coughing.
Yeah, I cough.
And then what else?
And yes, I don't know. There's one thing to... we normally say it in Ghana. I don't know if I've explained it in Ghana.
Go ahead.
Okay. Like in Ghana, we say tiko and shimi. At the same time, coughing too.
Okay.
And I'm feeling feverish. I don't know. Malaria.
Tiko and fable.
Over there.
It's also like hiccups.
Okay.
Okay, so you're feeling feverish, you're having recurrent hiccups, and then you're coughing, right? Is that all?
A headache.
Yeah.
You have a headache too.
All right, so we go to Ben. Ben, Well, thank you, Ben. Ben from Gansouth. Now let's go to another Ben, Elembele. Yes, please. Please go ahead. You have a question, and that'll be good, so that we pose it to our expert on stream.
Oh, okay. Left to me alone, I think this thing is being politicized. Hello?
Please go ahead.
Left to me alone, I think all these things are being politicized. But I would like to know the stance of the health professionals. And I think the, what do you call it, the issue of the restriction. Should it be lifted, or according to them, how do they want it to be? Because at long last, if the whole burden will come upon them when it comes to, what do you call it, when it comes to in a
managing the patient,
becomes very critical.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
right.
just want to know their stand, whether it should be open or not.
Okay.
Right,
now let's go to Akimodan, where we have Prince. Prince.
Yeah, good morning.
Go ahead, Prince. Good morning.
Yeah, you see, what the doctor said, the question that came before, that, for instance, the Madagascar have found an organic cure, and the response that the second doctor gave. You see, with cautiousness, we all know that even cooking a yam to eat, you need to be cautious about how you prepare it. We all know about that cautious measure that we need to take. What we are saying is that we have come to time of age, that if we call ourselves researchers, doctors, we need to come out with findings that will help us in this country. That is what we are saying. In time, we see our old men and women were having medicines. Plant medicine is the way to go. We need to be dependent on our own. This is the time that you have to put your brain together. So
Prince,
you are doctors.
Right, Prince. If you can make the specific question clear, a bit clear. What's the question?
My question is that why is it that Ghana, we are not finding medicine for some cures, some diseases and sicknesses in this country?
All right.
We have to go beyond depending on the Western countries.
Okay. Well, Prince, your point is made, Prince. Now let's go to Della. Della at Kojo Chrome. Della.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, sir. You have a question. The question is more appropriate. Please go ahead.
Okay. Special greetings from Dr. Jerry. Or she's watching you guys.
Who is he?
Yeah, a member of NDC COVID team.
Right.
This living with COVID issue. Seriously, I don't know what they are telling us. I can't really think far. Because how can I live with COVID-19? Is it normal? Has it become like malaria or fever?
Okay.
I don't understand Roland, because
Kojo, do you have a direct question instead of just making commentary?
My question is, how is the money that we receive from IMF disbursed? Because as you speak, when it comes to if you come to Roland, our frontline nurses are being affected.
Okay, so your point is about
right,
supporting the health institutions to deal with this, and you think that we are not there yet, so we can't live with it. Am I right?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll direct the first question to you, Dr. Owusu Entry. I think that's more appropriate. The psychology of it. We're looking at somebody who is calling from Gansouth, is having hiccups, and
I'm not sure if it's about the psychology. He's giving us that's why I took my time to write down the symptoms. He talks about feverishness, hiccups, coughing, headache. He's afraid. He wants to find out whether he should get tested. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's psychological.
Dr. Chris, you first, and then we'll go to Dr. Swinchi.
So that is a good question, actually. So because the symptoms he mentions are among symptoms that we look out for those who have symptoms. And yes, I think that he needs to dial the 112 number and speak to somebody. If this is mild, they may not need him to come to hospital. They may actually dispatch somebody from the district to test him and ask him to basically quarantine himself for a while. The other option is, at the end of this, I'll get the COVID Direct number. If there's an app that he can actually access. The University of Ghana Medical Center is set up an app with a team that mans that, and then they would help him directly. So the COVID Direct, which was set up with the assistance sponsorship of pharmacists. We can help him on that. There are a lot of people who are getting through to us on that app at the moment, and we're able to connect them even to health professionals if need be. If there are issues that we think that are significant needs to be tested, then we'll reach out to them. If we need to pick them up, we will reach out to them. So Gifty, at the end of this, what I'll do is actually send you the COVID Direct link, and then you can pass that on to Ben from South.
I hope that you can get it whilst we take the other answers, so that by the time we finish, we can have an answer to, share with him on TV. But I think that since we've dealt with the health, issue as to exactly what he should do, get tested or something, Dr. Ruth, maybe we'll bring you in at this point. He said he's afraid. So, we know that people experience these symptoms and they, out of fear, stay at home, rather stay at home and share, their thoughts with someone else, or sometimes end up transmitting the virus anyway. How can you help him, to deal with this psychologically, even as he waits to access healthcare?
Yeah, so that is very important. This is the very point that psychosocial support starts, right from the point where the person starts exhibiting any of the symptoms that is suggestive or otherwise of COVID-19. Because right from that point, fear can set in. I would encourage the young man not to be afraid, not to panic, but to calm down. It may not even be COVID, and you would have worried and lost sleep over it for nothing. That is not to say that even if it is COVID, you should lose sleep over it. Now the health team in the country, in all the various regions, are doing their best to care for patients who have tested positive. And when we look at our death rates, we see that it is still very low. That is not to say that even losing a single life is something to be happy about. And so he should hope and keep the faith alive that even if it is COVID, he would get through it. And so until the health team tells him to come for a test or a screening or otherwise, within the waiting period, he should make sure he's eating well, he's sleeping well, he is distracting himself, because every now and then the thoughts may come through your mind uninvitedly that so could this be COVID, could this not be COVID? Try as much as possible to distract yourself, and there are several activities he can do to distract himself. Watch a movie, get in touch with friends via phone or social media or video calls and stay connected. Make sure you're eating well, you're sleeping well, you are keeping your immune system on top in terms of getting good rest as well.
Okay.
And I hope that by so doing, even if it comes out positive, you would have prepared your immune system well to fight the infection. Okay. But the important thing is that don't worry, because worrying in itself would compromise your immune system, which will not help with your recovery in case it is COVID. Even if it is not COVID, whatever infection you may be having, you will need good immune system to stay on top of it. And so worrying should not come in at all.
Okay. We'll be wrapping up soon. Dr. Samuel Essien Beidou, I'd like to find out from you. This question keeps coming up, even here on my WhatsApp console. A lot of people are asking what your thoughts are as health professionals regarding easing of restrictions, as a lot of people are envisaging will happen next week. They also think that there's a lot of politicization. So where do you stand when it comes to easing of restrictions based on the facts available to us? Dr. Essien.
So thank you. I don't know what kind of restrictions people are looking at, but as we've...
I guess it's social gathering.
As we've clearly stated, once people can adapt well to the tenets provided by the Ghana Health Services on how to manage this infection, I think that we should be okay easing the restrictions. If people can adhere to physical distancing, if people can adhere to washing of hands, wearing of the face mask, and all of that. Once people can adapt well, I think that we should be able to ease these restrictions and allow the economy to also grow as well. Basically, it's about adaptation. We need people to understand the underlying principles behind these measures that have been put in place. Why is it important to wear a mask? Why is it important to wash your hands? Why is it important to physically distance? Once people understand the principles behind these things, then it will be easier for us to lift whatever restrictions we have put in place to make sure that the economy also doesn't suffer.
Right. Dr. Isen, thank you very much for your thoughts on that one as well. I don't know if I'll be able to take final words from all of you. If you can make it very brief for me. I can't do that. If you can do it very brief for me. I'll start with you, Dr. Owu. Still, the question keeps coming. How can we live with it? What should people take away from this conversation we've had today? Each of you can go for it. We start with Dr. Owu.
Yeah, so thank you again, Gifty. So basically, it's important that we reduce infectability, and it's important that we align our health system with other sectors in our other sectors, i.e. economy, education, to be able to move on. It's important that we're mindful that we're going to change how we practice medicine. Do people really need to come to clinic every single time? Are there things that we can do by telemedicine? It's important for us to know that we have to change some things about family life, but that should not destroy the social aspect of our life, but we need to do it more carefully. But one important lesson we've learned from this is that we win when we work together as different sectors and different disciplines. Even in medicine, working together with the different aspects. I've had to work with public health, clinical people, the psychosocial guys, diagnostic. And when we do this, we have bigger impact. And therefore, we need to start planning to put in structures in our system, health system, education system, finance, and all the rest of it to make sure that this works. That is how we're going to be able to live with this. Living with a virus does not mean that we're saying people should get infected. What we're saying is that we're living with other disease conditions, but we are not allowing it to overwhelm what we do as a people. So we're not saying that reduce your guard or lay down your guard. What we're saying is that let's reduce it to the barest minimum, that it is manageable even at every level of our healthcare system. That way, we're able to get through living with us. Gifty, I'm sending you the app through a course, this thing for the COVID Connect, so that you can make that available. But you can get it on iOS or Google Play. It's Lucy Vitals, LUSCII. Vitals is VITALS. But I would forward that to Echo right now.
Please do.
So that you can make that available to your audience.
Thank you so much.
If you have a dedicated team, reach out to you when you go through that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Owu there. By the way, Echo is a producer, so just so you don't get confused. Let me come to you. I'd love to end with Dr. Ruth. So let me come to you, Dr. Samuel Asian Bedu. Your takeaway, anybody who's listening to this conversation, what should they take away as we prepare to live with this for at least 5 years?
I think this is a very good opportunity for us to rethink our futures in terms of education, in terms of work, everything, the economy. One of the things that has become very evident is the use of technology. Previously, there were people who didn't really bother about the use of technology. But I think that this is a good opportunity for us to relook at our policies and incorporate a lot more technology into our educational system, our work environment, our transport system, and everything, so that we can also minimize the extent of contact between people. Basically, we need to adjust in these ways. Our family lives may be impacted in one way or the other until we have a credible vaccine. Our social life may be impacted in one way or the other until we have a credible vaccine. But that notwithstanding, I am sure that we can easily adapt to these new changes that we have. I'm sure we haven't forgotten about HIV when it came up some years ago. It was so difficult to live with. I think gradually we've adjusted to living with HIV, and it's here with us. We don't make a fuss about it like we used to. We just need to adapt to the changing times so that we can live well and happy after.
Very well, Doc. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Samuel Essien Baidu there. Finally, Dr. Ruth Owusu. Doc, what should people take away from your perspective?
Yes, I'll quickly touch on what people have said concerning our views. I would say that if that's mandatory for people to keep all the preventive measures, when I say mandatory, it should be illegal, for instance, for somebody to go out without a mask. It should be illegal for people to operate shops or meet at any gathering without hand sanitizers, without running water, without tissues, without liquid soaps for them to wash their hands. And so as we think of probably whether the government should lift up ban on gathering, in case he does, I am looking at a situation whereby the preventive measures shall become mandatory and legal, with law enforcing agents dispatched all over to ensure that we are keeping these preventive measures. And again, as we move to live with this virus, I want us to keep in mind our connections. I mean, connections make a difference. I have always said that the wording should have been to maintain physical distancing and not necessarily to maintain social distancing, because we can still stay connected socially via several means. And several studies have proven that connecting to people via video and voice is better than just text messages or email. And so let each one of us, as we live with this virus, find means to connect with each other. Don't let us lose our connectedness. We are social beings. And so our social connections must be kept whilst we keep our physical distances.
I mean, that's a great takeaway for me personally. For me, it's all about the mind. Even when you have the disease, it's all about the mind. It's been great talking to you all. I've been having this discussion, of course, with Roland Walker, but we've also had Dr. Samuel Essien Baidu, microbiologist and immunologist at the University of Cape Coast, who joined us. Thank you so much, Doc. We also had Dr. Ruth Owusu, who you just heard. She's head of the psychiatry unit at the Comfort Teaching Hospital. And then Dr. Christian O is a consultant anesthesiologist and head of ICU at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, also University of Ghana Medical Center. He is also the management coordinator of the National COVID-19 Case Management Center. Thank you so much this morning. You've done a great service to all of us as a country. We're grateful.
Well, definitely. And it's where we transition to look at the related issues on actions and activities being undertaken to make sure all of us are able to contain COVID-19. We say good morning to all of you, but we turn our attention to Maxwell Agbagba because there's an ongoing disinfection exercise at the Takoradi Harbour as part of the general national disinfection exercises that have been undertaken the last couple of weeks, still continuing. And Maxwell will bring us up to date. And what do we have, Maxwell? I can see you well strapped in groomed PPE, so to speak. Maxwell
just got into the deep freezer.
I think he's back.
But we can raise Maxwell back surely. And I mean, some of you did send in your text messages. We couldn't read them. Maybe we'll do that whilst we get Maxwell out of the deep freezer at this point. This one says, I would like to know those who have recovered whether those who have recovered are being put on a specific treatment. They've talked about it. The health professionals have talked about it. They've said that sometimes they allow them to go home to treat it. They have azithromycin, I think, if I'm getting the word right. I think that's the sort of treatment they're giving them. Essentially, there's no vaccine and there's no cure, so we treat the symptoms, and that's what it looks like we do. Mavis is texting from Takwa. Says, hi, Roland. My proposal is that 1, health workers who are working to achieve one purpose are at risk of COVID-19. 2, if government will put measures in place to screen all workers of COVID-19, supply us with immune boosters to protect ourselves. And 3, government will put in measures in place to transport nurses to and from work. So these are your thoughts on how we can live with it. You are a health professional, it looks like. You say you are Mavis from Takwa. And Takwa has had its own, problems with COVID-19 recently. It's been spiking up, quite steadily there. Hopefully you work things out over there. This one is a question. Let me see if I have an answer. If not, okay. I think I've already taken it. Okay. So this one is talking about herbal medicine. It says, I'd like to know whether the herbal medicine that the Center for Scientific have proven that it can be used to fight against the pandemic is in use. And if it is in use, how are patients responding to this new herbal medicine discovered in our country? Philip from Takrady. Philip, I'm not sure that we're using any herbal medicines. As far as I'm concerned, I think the tests are still ongoing. But this is a question we can ask government at the press conference that they organize every week when we get there.
Yeah. And I have to add that the response to that text about the treatment regimen that are being used, the number of drug combinations that are used depending on how efficacious a certain combination is to a particular case, because we don't have the vaccines or the treatment regimen. So they just use a combination, which one that works better for you to recover or manage. That's what it's used. But look, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're putting on the front burner the subject of how Islam is able to manage the related issues of social distancing. Now we're talking fiscal distancing, as we got from Dr. Ruth Owusu-Entwi there. But how is that affecting the practice, and how are the managers and the scholars and the imams in the communities managing this? Up next. Well, we also have to say that all of us are having a great time right here in the studio. And yesterday was a great time for me as well. I had a lot of food from my Muslim brothers and sisters. Because
no wonder you're giving them a lot of
shout out. But it's also the birthday of one of our lead social media.
K-Fresh.
Yes. Kwame Che. It's called Kwame Che.
Kwekuche.
Okay, Kwekuche. Popularly known as
So when you see our photos on social media, and when you see our name in the trends and our programs in the trends, there's someone behind the scenes who's working this out with his team. K-Fresh, we love you.
Yeah, we do love you. And talking about all the things that we tend to enjoy here and the Ramadan, we have to talk about how we need to situate the current state. Because we just had a conversation about coronavirus, how the new normal should be. But how has the Muslim community been managing this? Because there are restrictions. You're not supposed to go to the mosques and do all the related issues of socialization. How do they manage it? We decided to bring into the conversation Abdul Samad Saeed. He is an imam, and then also another imam. So we have Imam Izzuddin Suleiman, and is Islamic scholar, but currently also the CEO of Ansar International Ghana. And then also Imam Abdul Samad Saeed also going to join us this morning. So we're probably to have some great conversations relatedly. But Gifty will start with some great questions. And Gifty, what do we have to first start with?
Well, I just say it's Barakah Salah to all of you. And Imam, thank you very much for joining us as well. How did you go about it yesterday?
Yes, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala khair khalqillah. Yes, Alhamdulillah, it was good yesterday. We went to GBC and we made the Salatul Eid with the National Chief Imam with the social distance, and Alhamdulillah, it was good. It's normal, Alhamdulillah.
But it's not the same I mean, to have a national, celebration like this done in a small studio tells you that times have changed. They are not the same. How can we practice? I mean, we're being told that we have to live with this because at least for the next 5 years, we may have to be living with this as people try to get a vaccine. In your community, in the Muslim communities, in the Zongos, etc., how are they dealing with the whole idea that we have to live with it? It has come to stay because you have to go to, Makaranta, you have to have the kids go to Makaranta. I mean, you have to converge every Friday for prayers, Friday prayers, etc. How are you dealing with this in the communities?
Yes, Alhamdulillah, it's not so easy. And as we know, this coronavirus is not only in Ghana and it's not to only the Muslims, it's worldwide, everywhere. And example like this Ramadan, we couldn't go to tafsir, we couldn't go to Salatul Taraweeh and Tahajjud. We have to understand that in Islam has been handling pandemic for over 1,400 years with the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is normal. We have to understand this because at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you also have some travel bans and also handle some pandemic issues. So, but some of us in our communities are trying to take this very hard to understand, but if you are a Muslim and you know what your religion teaches you, then you know that this is something that you have to understand and take it easy. And we have to all hope and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God will change this and our life will come in a normal way. Because if you want, I can state some things that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he handled about pandemic issues.
Okay.
At his time, there's a time that a leprous man came to pledge his allegiance to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how they do that, Prophet Muhammad has to hold his hand to pledge the allegiance. And this man is a leprous, so he can't do that. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him that your allegiance has been accepted, so you can go back home. The prophet didn't hold his hands, so that is social distance. He didn't come close to him to do that. He just told him that it's accepted, you can go back home. So this is normal. And the time of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, there's a leprous woman, she was making tawaf, circling the Kaaba as we do in Mecca. So Hazrat Umar came to her and told her that, hey, you woman, you should go back home and do this because of your own good and also the good of the others, because you can affect other people. So the woman has to go back home to do that. So I want to advise all our Muslim brothers and sisters to try and understand what the government is saying about this pandemic. And we should know that everything that the governments are trying to teach are from the teachings of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because from Islamic understanding, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the prophet of everyone, both Muslims and Christians. So that is why the government are going on with his teachings, because this is 1,400 years ago.
Right. Let me just indicate that we have Imam Abdul Samad Saeed also join us via phone. Imam, thank you also very much for your time this afternoon, this morning.
You're welcome.
Okay. I believe that you've had a good season yourself. But we're just talking to Imam Izzuddin Suleiman, who talks about how people are taking it in the communities. I'd like to find out from you, one of the things that Christians have been told is that you can't go to church. Exactly the same is happening in Islam, that you can't go for Friday prayers. For us as Christians, we are encouraged to stay at home and pray and join in, maybe via Zoom or something to our church. How are you able to do that? I mean, are you able to do anything similar? Have a Zoom service? How are people praying on their own, for example?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. All praises and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May his peace and blessings be upon the masterpiece, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. First of all, I wish to extend my salam to my listeners and viewers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Now, we ought to understand that this, pandemic that we are facing now is something that has happened in the past, to an extent that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, under the tutorship of Ibn Abbas, when there was a torrential rainfall, and Ibn Abbas commanded the muazzin, the one who calls us to pray, to say, instead of come to the masjid and pray, Ibn Abbas commanded him, say, as-salatu sallu fi buyutikum. He commanded him to repeat, pray in your home.
Okay.
So Ibn Abbas, after doing that, he actually saw that the people were so astonished. And so he told them that this is a teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, that by analogy, when we sense danger, we are supposed to stay in our home, houses, and establish our prayers. So this is also an aspect of Islamic teaching. So once you have, you are learned and you know what Islam is about, this is not something new. It is something that the Salaf, the early Muslims, actually faced, and there was a way out. So we prayed in our houses to an extent that Jum'ah was not established in the masjid, because one of the conditions for establishing Jum'ah is health, and also, doing away with danger. And in Islam, hifzun nafs, saving life, comes first before any other thing, even before worship.
Okay.
So to save the life, the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Whoever saves a life is as if the person has saved the entire humanity. So asking us to pray at home to restrict the spread of this pandemic is an Islamic teaching.
Okay.
And to move on, we have to establish that in this challenging time, that you and I know that we are not in normal times.
Yeah.
There is a verse in An-Nisa where the Almighty Allah says, وَإِذَا جَاءَهُمْ أَمْرٌ مِّنَ الْأَمْنِ أَوِ الْخَوْفِ أَذَاعُوا بِهِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ. By this verse, the Almighty Allah says that if any new affair comes to them, they turn it to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or if they turn it to the stakeholders and those in authority among them, then those in authority and the Messenger of Allah, who is no more, would have found a lasting solution to their problem. So in this trying moment, we are supposed to listen to our health professionals,
right,
obey those in authority,
yeah,
so that we can have a lasting solution to this problem.
Hopefully we will, and we will soon. If you are watching us from home, I would like for you to send us your thoughts and your, maybe your brief comments as well. Maybe if you have a question or two, we might have some time to chip that in quickly so that your imams can answer them for you. But I'm curious about one thing, Hajj. Hajj is, when you do the Hajj and you go to Mecca, you have so many people assembled at one place. That has been called off. To what extent will this affect the relationship, the connection of a Muslim with Allah?
I mentioned to you one fact that, Hifzun Nafs, the Islamic, civilization has one important principle that we all ought to understand. They say that daf'u darar wa jalbul masalih. To prevent evil comes before doing good. Daf'u darar muqaddamun ala jalbil masalih. Prevention of evil comes first before what? Doing good. So Hajj, throughout history, the Saudi government would have established that, I mean, throughout history, Hajj has been called off for more than 40 times.
Wow. But this is the first in our generation, isn't it?
Yes, it's true. So I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So even in the month of Ramadan, the expectation was that because the house of Allah in Mecca usually is inundated with Muslims during Ramadan, where they embark on the minor Hajj. That was called off. And this major Hajj has also been called off to save the lives of the Muslims. Because once the Muslims are not, I mean, healthy and sound, how can they even perform Hajj?
Yeah.
So it is in line with the Islamic teaching that we should save the lives of the Muslims, and the Muslims understand that in this trying moment, wherever we are, we understand that لَن يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Nothing shall befall us but what Allah the Almighty has decreed upon us. Now, and it is on Allah that we depend. Depending on Allah is in twofold. To depend on Allah is to surrender yourself to Allah. And secondly, making a deliberate attempt to follow the right procedure and precaution. Now, if you only depend on Allah by surrendering yourself to Allah without following the right procedure and precaution, you will end up losing your life. So what the Saudi government has done is in line with the Islamic teachings, and alhamdulillah, we have our, I mean, great Islamic scholars who have sat down and discussed these issues extensively, and have asked us, I mean, those of us outside, I mean, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to help them in prayer. So I believe it's in the right direction, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that, because as part of the Islamic teaching, the Prophet even says that anybody who consumes garlic or anything similar to garlic should not come close to our masjid. Meaning, when you consume garlic, don't come close to the masjid. Don't join the congregation. Because that smell and stench in turn harm people. So it is a way of telling you that when there is a harm, you stay away from, the congregation, so that the congregation is healthy. And Allah knows best.
Okay. Let me go on to Zoom to have the CEO of Ansar, Suleiman, Imam Suleiman, who's also been joining us. So you've been doing some charity work as well. We've just spoken to someone who's a psychiatrist who has spoken about the need for us to connect with people in these times. I mean, this is something that Muslims do a lot, supporting one another. Tell us about this work that you did, this charity work that you did, and what's the sort of benefit is brought to the people you extended the support to.
Yes, first of all, my organization is Ansar International, and our headquarters is from Germany, and I am in charge of the organization here in West Africa, because I run through 7 countries all over West Africa. And alhamdulillah, we used to give massive donations throughout Ghana, throughout Nigeria, Niger, Mali, and Togo. And this is our first time to distribute in Ghana because of the COVID-19. Because my sponsors were thinking that, there's not so much hunger here in Ghana. So with this COVID-19, I tried to speak with them, and they accept to give me, I think, 500 packages of food to distribute to the people here in Ghana. And it was massive, and so many people came to the food, and they fought for the food. So in this Ramadan, I spoke with them to add Ghana to my project, because I used to run 3 projects at a time. So they gave me distribution here in Ghana, alhamdulillah. So we distributed, I think, 1,700 packages of food here in Ghana. We started at Accra, around Abusioka, Zungu, where these beggars are. Then we moved to the Kayayu people. And we gave the distribution out, and so many Christians also got this. And in our religion, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell us to always give charity. You understand? Because even with this pandemic, there are two things that can throw the pandemic away from you, which are spiritual. Number one is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "La yaruddul qadr illa du'a aw sadaqa." We have something that we call qadr in our religion. You have to believe in qadr. That is iman bil qadr, to believe in qadr. Qadr is what happened in your life. If you are living, you should believe that if something good happened in your life.
Okay. Imam Suleiman, and it's where we have to wrap up. But before we go, Imam Abdul Samad Saeed, you get to know that when you know the various sects of Islam, you have the Wahhabis who occupy the areas in Saudi Arabia and so on. You have the Shias, etc. Do you think that because of this coronavirus and the disagreement thereof of worship, perhaps we can find some amicable consensus by which we can move forward to have a new normal of life, knowing that this is going to stay with us? And this will be your wrap-up comment in the first place.
Yeah, I want to establish here that all of us have agreed that there is a problem, and therefore we need to come together and have a lasting solution to the problem. And in this challenging time, it is not a matter of fact. It is not even only a matter of religion. That is why you realize that the Saudi government donated some huge sums of money to, the World Health Organization to find a lasting solution to humanity. So humanity comes first before religion. And that is why Allah says that من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس. Anybody who takes away a soul, here it is not a soul of a Muslim, meaning anybody who kills a living soul, whether a soul of atheist or pagan or what have you, فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. It's as if the person has assassinated the entire humanity. So for the sake of humanity, the Muslim sect or the Muslim ideologists would have to sit down and actually come to a conclusion as to how to find lasting solution to this problem. Not only Muslims, with all stakeholders to find a lasting solution to this. And this offers us an opportunity to understand that beyond our sect, we have humanity to deal with.
Okay.
And I believe that, with the face of humanity, we can sit together and exchange pleasantries and come to a conclusion.
Well, thank you very much. And that concludes our conversation on Islamic worship, practice, and coronavirus. And we've had Imam Suleiman also on the stream helping us with the discussion, and Imam Saeed also helping us with the related conversation as well. We thank all of you, and especially for Muslim brothers and sisters, for a great celebration that took place on Sunday. But in the meantime, your convenience and safety means a lot to us. Easy does it. Now, read all the news at home. No need to leave your home or office when the news is available to you on the go. Now, get onto your device now. Download Graphic News Plus from Google Play Store or App Store. Make sure that you buy your e-copies of the Daily Graphic, the Mirror, the Graphic Business, the Graphic Showbiz, Junior Graphic, Graphic Sports, as well as videos, free news, and so much more. Plus, all this coming to you as you enjoy some 10% discounts on a monthly subscription, 15% for 3 months subscription, and 20% for 6 months and beyond. Graphic News Plus, connecting people through news. We also wish to apologize to our cherished audiences, especially those living in the United Kingdom, for their inability to access us through the TuneIn app as usual. Make sure though you access all our content as it is available on myjoyonline.com and adomonline.com. You can also access our streams on Facebook, Android devices, Google Play Store, and also on Apple with the App Store. Well, get all the latest updates as usual. The latest battle between reggae artists Benny Man and Bounty Killer was the party everyone expected, as the two artists, they battled in person in Jamaica. All these updates on AM Showbiz with Kadi up next.